The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore.
Public breakup inside the new and growing feud between the president and Elon Musk. The back and forth happening right now. And decision season. The Supreme Court begins handing down rulings in one of their busiest years ever, where the First and Second Amendments were upheld in the latest decisions. And then recovery mission. 2 deceased American hostages are back in the hands of IDF forces. How the mission came to be: to retrieve 2 of the final 58 hostages out of Gaza. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, I'm Didi Gatton, and we are so glad you're here with us on this busy Thursday. Right now, the suspect in the anti-Semitic attack in Boulder is in a Colorado court. 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon is being formally charged with attempted first-degree murder and use of an incendiary device. At least 15 people and a dog were injured in the firebombing attack on Sunday while rallying in support of Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Solomon also faces federal hate crime charges, and more federal charges could be coming, according to prosecutors. Solomon due in federal court tomorrow. President Donald Trump hosted newly elected German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the White House today. But then, as he answered questions from the press about Elon Musk's opposition to his big, beautiful bill, a very public rift began between him and his one-time advisor.
I've always liked Elon, and it's always very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible.
The fallout didn't end there. Our very own Kayla Gaskins was in the Oval Office when this all happened, Kayla, and when Elon started to clap back on X against the president. What are you learning?
Yeah, Didi, so you heard the president say there, I would rather Elon criticize me and not the bill. Well, I think Elon heard him and is taking that to heart, because these attacks now coming from Elon towards the president, they're getting personal and they're getting ugly. Now, Didi, not too long ago, these two were thick as thieves. Elon Musk was often here at the White House, even staying overnight as he worked on Doge, but he since concluded his time as a special employee for the federal government. It appeared at the time that these two were on good, warm terms as Elon exited the White House. That might not have been the case. The relationship has turned chilly, and this all started when Elon Musk started publicly criticizing Donald Trump's signature piece of legislation, the big, beautiful bill.
Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore.
We were in the Oval Office Thursday as President Trump told reporters he was very disappointed in Elon.
I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden, he had a problem.
Elon Musk responded in real time, calling the president's statements false and saying the bill was never shown to him once, doubling down on his disdain for the legislation, which he has called a disgusting abomination that would bankrupt America, that does nowhere near enough to cut government spending. The president, though, suggesting this is all due to Musk being the CEO of Tesla, and the bill cuts incentives to buy EVs, which would be bad for Musk's business.
When that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, he became a little bit different, and I can understand that, but he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left.
Musk dismissing the comments, again responding in real time, writing on X, keep the EV solar incentives cuts in the bill. Also cut all the crazy spending increases in the big, ugly bill so that America doesn't go bankrupt. Trump responding later on Truth Social, saying the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. And Didi, after that Truth Social post that we just showed on the screen, Donald Trump posted again on Truth Social saying that Elon Musk was wearing thin here at the White House and he was asked to leave. That's the first time that we've heard that. Elon Musk then responding on X with this one. Here's where it started to get personal and ugly, like I mentioned before. Time to drop the really big bomb. At Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Well, that sounds like a threat, indeed. I don't think we've seen the last of these social media sparring from two very heavy hitters.
Right, and I'm sure that comment about the Epstein files is sure to be brought up later on. But back to the relationship between Trump and Musk. I know many of us remember President Trump driving to the White House in that Tesla that Elon Musk gave him. I know it's been sitting outside the White House. What's the latest on that?
It is, Didi. It's actually, I'm in a direct line of sight, so I can see the red Tesla directly behind my cameraman, Mike Griffith. And there's actually a group of reporters here outside the White House that have been on Tesla watch to see what happens to that car. Will it get towed away? Will it continue to sit in the White House parking lot as a very public show of their friendship? If that car is removed, what will that say about where Musk and Trump stand going forward? Didi.
Right. If it is removed, a major escalation from the war on words on X right now. Live from Washington, D.C., Kayla Gaskins, thank you. And as far as the big, beautiful bill goes, Kayla just mentioned, Speaker Mike Johnson says he remains optimistic the bill will be complete on time.
Things are not always what they seem, okay? There's very fruitful conversations going on between the senators in the White House and between all of us. So I'm just as optimistic as I've been from the beginning. I'm convinced we're going to meet this deadline that we've stated to get at the president's desk by Independence Day.
President Trump says a long-awaited phone call with China's President Xi Jinping today had a very positive conclusion. The president says U.S. and Chinese officials will be meeting soon for negotiations in the hope of ending the trade war. He says he thinks the trade deal with China is in good shape.
We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points having to do mostly with rare earth magnets and some other things.
At the last trade meeting in May, U.S. and Chinese officials agreed to temporarily reduce retaliatory tariffs, but President Trump accused Beijing of failing to deliver on a pledge to export additional rare earth minerals to the U.S. Tariffs are having a massive impact on the imbalance of imports and exports. A new Commerce Department report shows a record-breaking 55% drop in the U.S. trade deficit in April from $138 billion to around $62 billion. President Trump's travel ban to 12 countries is set to take effect on Monday. International aid groups are condemning this decision. In a post on X, Amnesty International calls it, quote, discriminatory, racist, and downright cruel. The president cites national security concerns for the move, including the recent attack in Boulder, Colorado. Now, members of Congress are weighing in.
Very comfortable, because the president's number one responsibility is the national security of the United States.
I don't understand it. The president said this situation, the terrible crime in Boulder, was the reason for this. The individual in Boulder was from Egypt. The president did not include Egypt on his list of nations of people we don't want in the United States.
The president also banned foreign students from gaining access to the U.S. for the purpose of going to school at Harvard for at least the next 6 months. Harvard called the move illegal and a violation of the First Amendment rights. One House representative also says the move goes against the United States' best interests.
Now their memory of the U.S. is that we don't want you. They're going to carry that with them if they become leaders in business, leaders in their countries in the future. They are going to be the next generation of researchers, the next generation of scientists. I'd rather have them educated here and maybe even stay here to continue their work.
Authorities in Wenatchee and Chelan County, Washington, have closed the entire Icicle Creek area near Leavenworth to visitors as they continue to search for murder suspect Travis Decker, who is accused of killing his 3 young daughters during a camping trip. The National News Desk, Theron Zahn, has more as citizens are helping law enforcement in the manhunt.
Finding Decker in the wilderness of central Washington will not be an easy job, but hundreds of volunteers say they're not going to stop until they get justice for his 3 girls he's accused of killing. New Ring video shows what investigators say is the last record of Travis Decker before his 3 young daughters were killed. Police are also giving out these new pictures of him. They want the public to get a good look, so if they spot him, they can call 911. In the air and on the ground, the search continues in the vast wilderness of Chelan County, looking for any trace of the military veteran who has extensive experience in living off the grid, even attending mountain survival school.
He could have scoped out this area before, put supplies out there, and has the ability and the knowledge to survive.
While the search goes on, tributes for his 3 daughters continue to come in, with the tragic case getting attention across the country. We're told Decker's parents are cooperating with the investigation.
This is their son, so of course that they have concerns about his safety, but overall they understand that he does have to be brought in and he has to be held accountable for his actions.
It's not known if he is in fact in the wilderness right now, but given his survival skills, that is where the strongest assumption is. But again, the call is going out nationwide to be on the lookout for Decker.
The water in Baltimore's Inner Harbor has turned red. Look at it right here. This is following a diesel fuel spill. It happened last night. Officials say about 2,000 gallons of fuel came from a Johns Hopkins hospital facility. The cleanup operations are still underway in an effort to minimize the environmental impact of the spill. Maryland's governor says local residents remain safe in the city.
As of this morning, we have no evidence to suggest there is any impact on drinking water in the area. Now, despite that, I do want to be clear that we still have work to do.
The Supreme Court began their decision season with 3 rulings today in a unanimous decision written by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. The court sided with a straight woman who said she was discriminated against by her homosexual boss on the basis of her heterosexual orientation and even demoted her after being passed over for the promotion. The ruling allows the plaintiff, Marlene Ames, to sue her former employer, the Ohio Department of Youth Services. In another unanimous decision, the justices said American firearm manufacturers are not liable for gun violence in Mexico. Justice Kagan wrote that manufacturers are protected for selling weapons unless they knowingly and purposefully sell them to those who will break the law. In a third decision, the High Court ruled in favor of the Catholic Charities Bureau in Wisconsin, saying they were improperly charged unemployment taxes. Rulings will continue to come out until at least the end of the month. And continuing coverage in the sex trafficking trial of record mogul Sean Diddy Combs, another witness testified under an alias. Jane told the jury about using ecstasy with Combs multiple times on a 9-day trip to the Bahamas when they dated. She also recounted when Combs asked her to have sex with other men during their courtship. She didn't want to, but felt obligated. But earlier in the day, Combs was warned by the judge to not make face or eye contact with the jury. The judge threatened to remove Combs from the courtroom if he didn't stop. Legal experts on CNN believe this could open the door for an appeal for the defense if Combs is found guilty. Coming up, the major escalation in efforts by the current president to investigate the former one. Then, the action a handful of states are taking to prevent abortion pills from being restricted even further. Then, the unprecedented investment the state of Texas is making in schools and teachers. We're back in 90 seconds. IDF has recovered the bodies of 2 Israeli-American hostages held captive in Gaza for 608 days. Judy Weinstein-Hagee and Gadi Hagee can finally be laid to rest. The couple was on their morning walk when they were murdered and abducted by Gaza on October 7th by Hamas-led terrorists. Their bodies were received in a special military operation in Han Yunis following the interrogation of a Palestinian terror operative who was detained by IDF forces in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reacting to the news, writing that together with all of the citizens of Israel, my wife and I extend our heartfelt condolences to the dear families. We will not rest or be silent until we return all of our abductees home, the living and the dead alike. The recovery mission happened just hours after the U.S. has vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that demands an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. America voted against the measure because it was not linked to the release of hostages. Acting U.S. representative saying approving the measure would empower Hamas and undermine Israel's security.
We cannot allow the Security Council to reward Hamas's intransigence. After all, it was Hamas who started this brutal conflict on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas perpetrated the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust.
President Trump is launching an official investigation into President Biden's final months in the White House with a focus on his use of the auto pen, and who may have known about his reported cognitive decline outlined in a new book, which alleges a cover-up. As Christine Frizzell reports, he's now gotten his attorney general involved.
The Department of Justice, just the latest entity to be launching an investigation into President Joe Biden's final months in the White House.
I know some of the people that use that auto pen, and those are not the people that had the same ideology as Joe Biden. These were radical left lunatics that used that, and they didn't get elected.
Trump focusing in part on presidential pardons Biden signed, including for family members, and the sentences he commuted of prisoners on death row. On Wednesday, issuing this memo asking the DOJ to investigate, quote, whether certain individuals conspired to deceive the public about Biden's mental state. At the same time, Republicans on the House Oversight Committee are ramping up their own investigation into the matter, following the release of this book by journalists Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson.
We want to know who told them to do what and when. We want to know that Joe Biden actually gave the authority to do that Joe Biden was cognitively aware of what he was doing.
His committee now expanding its investigation with demands Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, answer questions. Also now calling former Chief of Staff Ron Klain and other Biden officials Anita Dunn, Bruce Reed, and Steve Ricchetti. Former President Biden now responding in a statement writing, "Let me be clear. I made the decisions during my presidency. I made the decisions about the pardons, executive orders, legislation, and proclamations. Any suggestion that I didn't is ridiculous and false." For years now, Republicans have accused the Justice Department of being weaponized against them and Donald Trump. Now critics say Trump is weaponizing it himself, even using the DOJ as his personal law firm.
The idea of focusing on President Biden is a way of distracting from Donald Trump's efforts to completely undermine our democracy, to grift and engage in corruption.
Even though he left office months ago, Joe Biden once again a major target for Republicans on Capitol Hill. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National News Desk.
Canadian wildfire smoke that's entered the United States is drifting further east. The worst of it is now over parts of Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana. Check out this map where the air quality is ranked unhealthy. 200 active wildfires are burning in Canada, with over 100 considered out of control, according to officials. Hazy skies are expected to continue in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic through at least tomorrow. 4 Democrat-led states are asking the Food and Drug Administration to remove certain restrictions on abortion pills. Today, officials from Massachusetts, New York, California, and New Jersey They filed a petition urging the agency not to further regulate mifepristone and to review research showing the drug is safe and effective. The FDA must respond within 180 days. American tennis star Coco Goff is preparing for her second French Open final after beating Louise Bosan of France today. Number 2 seeded Goff said she tried to block out the crowd's overwhelming support for Bosan and pretended that they were chanting Coco. Goff will face number 1 seeded Arina Sabalenka of Belarus in the championship match on Saturday. A breakthrough in wound healing is helping people recover. Medical reporter Liz Bona shows us how it all works.
Hey there, everybody. Hello to you. It is not a pill, but a patch that one man says has been life-changing in healing his wound.
How many times I get to ring it?
His name is Terry Williams, and he certainly has something to celebrate. You see, just a short time ago, after part of his foot was removed due to an infection,
The vascular doctor told me I was going to lose half my leg.
that changed when he met this guy.
Mr. Terry.
Hey, Doc. How you doing?
Dr. Greg Worley.
Dr. Worley said, we're going to save it. And he did.
Dr. Worley did it with the help of what's called the 3C patch. It was full of Terry's personal infection-fighting cells and platelets.
Platelets are full of growth factors that stimulate new blood growth, new tissue growth, and new skin growth.
As this video provided by Reaplic shows, to create the 3C patch,
what we do is we take the patient's blood, we spin it down in a centrifuge, and we create a three-dimensional patch of just the patient's own growth factors and healing factors.
the patch with those growth factors is then placed on a wound for about a week.
Those actually stimulate our patient's own body to start forming new blood vessels, new tissue, and new skin.
As this team showed me, each week a new patch is created.
And the patch is actually going to be right on top.
Little by little, Terry says, thanks to a doctor and a medical team that wouldn't give up,
He's my hero.
Terry got back on his feet. He can now walk out of this wound care center with his wife, Linda, of 56 years, all patched up and completely healed.
Coming up, the steps being taken to stop Americans from unknowingly participating in an illegal wildlife trade. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America. We start in Texas, where public schools are getting billions of dollars in new funding.
Texas should be #1 in educating our children.
An $8.5 billion investment in public education, including $4 billion for teacher and staff pay raises, is now law of the land. That's the most ever in Texas history, and it could be impacting schools as soon as next school year.
The fact that this teacher allotment for compensation
is not just a bonus or a stipend, it's for the first time ever permanent.
It's arguably the biggest bill of the 89th session, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Governor Abbott has already signed SB 2 into law, creating a private school vouchers program in the state.
This bill would restrict the sale of wildlife, of imperiled species that are coming into the state, and Pennsylvanians who are unknowingly making these purchases so that they're not contributing to the wildlife trade by unknowingly doing so.
A deep dive investigation into ivory sales across the Commonwealth is now helping lawmakers attempt to pass a new bill. The Humane World for Animals says it found nearly 400 items identified as ivory being sold across the Commonwealth.
We've done ivory investigations. We've done maybe about 7 or 10 of them over the last several years, and we find a lot of ivory in this country.
Jaden Neal on his family's farm here in Albion might be well on his way to changing the cow milking process. He says the current method of milking has some issues.
The existing tools have brushes and belts or are in contact with the cows, and that can cause some contamination issues or cross-contamination issues, and it's also just rougher on the cows.
He's made a device called the Vortex. It's 3D printed, light in weight, and is an udder washing device focused on sterilization. It also has improved grip and nozzle heads. Jaden put his new bachelor's degree from the Rochester Institute of Technology to work. Jaden's business is appropriately called Udder Ways, and the plan is to bring this tool out to the family farm in Albion.
Well, in just about 2 hours, the NBA Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder tip off. Neither team has won an NBA title in their current city. The Thunder franchise did win in Seattle as the Supersonics back in 1979. That's going to do it for us tonight. See you at 10.